Okay, at 7 p.m., May 24th, 2023, calling the planning board meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
What she said at a 2022 board meeting.
So tonight we have 3 items on our agenda: public hearing for a major subdivision. Tom Reed, presentation of a sketch plan for the Sagamore Drive subdivision, and a review of updated documents for the Evergreen Estates subdivision on Call Street. First item is the public hearing. I'd like to call the public hearing to order. Karen, do you want to read it to the record?
One moment. Please take notice that pursuant to the zoning ordinance of the town of Lake Luzerne, the planning board will conduct a public hearing at the regularly scheduled meeting on Wednesday, November 24th, 2023 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the Municipal Complex, 539 Lake Avenue, town of Lake Luzerne, to hear comments on the following major subdivision application. Major subdivision 2023 SD-1, 11 lots, applicant owner Thomas Reed. Parcel number 286.1-18 and 298.1-36. The portion being subdivided is RE Residential Resort Zone. 286.1-18 is 93.30 acres and 286.1-36 is 2.15 acres. Minimum town size requirements for RE zone is 1 acre with a 200-foot minimum lot width. Location Hidden Valley Road, Lake Luzerne. The applicant has proposed to subdivide 2 parcels into 11 lots, 9 building lots, 1 road lot, and 1 vacant lot on a cul-de-sac that will have access from Hidden Valley Road. A copy of the application subdivision maps, as well as other supporting documents, are on file with the Office of the Zoning Officer and may be reviewed by interested parties by contacting the zoning office at 518-696-2711 extension 4, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. All parties in interest and citizens will be given an opportunity to be heard in respect to the proposed subdivision at the public hearing. Persons or their agents may comment in person, submit comments by email, submit a letter, or participate in the public hearing via Zoom. To participate via Zoom, use the Zoom application or visit https://zoom.us/join and enter the access code 902-687-9764. Karen Putney, zoning officer, town of Lake Luzerne zoning, PO Box 370, Lake Luzerne, New York, 12846, 518-696-2711, extension 4, Lake Luzerne 4 at albany.twcbc.com, published May 14th, 2023. I did not receive any emails, any letters, any comments by phone. We did have one couple in the office looking at the file, but I believe they're here if they're going to make any comments, but I did not receive any comments.
Is there someone here for Tom Reed representing?
Yes, Matt Huntington here with Studio A on behalf of Tom Reed, and Matt Steves with Van Dusen Steves Land Surveyors. Would the board like us to give a brief refresher, or are you just taking public comment?
Go ahead and give us a refresher. I just had a question about the map because I was keep looking at it. This is supposed to be 9 lots, correct?
Well, yeah, we kind of went over this. This helps with the refresher. So it's 9 lots as far as the APA is concerned. Because we have been working with them, that gets us under their major subdivision regulations for a rural use area. However, from the town's perspective, it's actually 11 lots because the road is 1 lot and then there's the vacant lot there. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy there on what's what. So it's a major subdivision for the town, minor subdivision as far as the APA.
Because one of the lots is listed as A, not a
Yes.
number.
So that's the existing, that triangular piece, that's the existing triangular lot that is actually subject to a lot line adjustment and not the creation of a new lot. So there's already two lots there, and then the APA looked at it, kind of playing a numbers game to get us into the minor subdivision regulations as an existing lot, an existing two lots, making it 9 total.
It's an existing triangular parcel that really doesn't support building out without a lot line adjustment. It's kind of in the middle of the property. So it, you know, it already is a current tax parcel. So we're just incorporating that and then re-subdividing the entirety into 9 buildings.
And to get to that parcel, you would use the main road, not.
Right.
Okay. Because I saw there was no entrance to it from the, well, it's kind of landlocked unless you use it. Okay.
It fronts on the main road now and Hidden Valley Road, but all the lots will now be entering off of the new road except for the one larger lot to the east.
Okay. Or anything from the APA?
We haven't submitted back to them because
Okay.
if you recall, the last time we were here, we were in the process of trying to determine if the town would be willing to take the road. We've had conversations with Karen, who's gone to the town board, and it seems like that's going to be a likely path. We did receive review comments from the town engineer at Cedarwood, and I spoke with Jonathan from Cedarwood briefly this afternoon about them. There don't appear to be any showstoppers there. You know, they're all addressable comments to run through. Some of them are more related to the board working through the seeker process, and some of them are on our end.
Well, we kind of had a meeting today with the town. Ronnie Dole, who's in charge of the roads. I don't think he's too, as far as the storm drainage. Now that could create a problem, right? Because I don't think he wants to take that. I think he might be willing to take over the road,
Okay.
but the storm drainage represents another situation for the town and for him as far as somebody actually taking care of it, you know.
I mean, that's something that can certainly be written in the deeds and covenants of the HOA. That,
I was gonna say it has to be an HOA thing, right?
yeah, that would then become their responsibility as opposed to the town. That was why we came here originally last month, because we were at the point where we're almost done with the APA, but there were a few outstanding questions, that being one of them in terms of road ownership. So we wanted to present that as well as start the seeker process with the town.
Okay. So go ahead and give your review for the audience and then they can.
Yeah, so what we have is, as we said, an 11 lot subdivision as far as the town is concerned on Hidden Valley Road. It's adjacent to the Tubby Tubes area. North, I guess that would be north or east of Tubby Tubes. It's a single road to a cul-de-sac at the end. We're looking at a total of 8 houses on there. Is it 8 or 9? Sorry. We have been going through the process of dealing with Department of Health. We went out there and they witnessed some test pits with us for stormwater and septic. It's good soils in terms of infiltration, sandy soils. We hit no areas of groundwater. So from a stormwater and wastewater perspective, the site is pretty ideal for the amount of lot coverage that we have there. There are some wetlands on the east side, APA regulated wetlands on the east side of the property that we're avoiding any disturbance with. We have started the APA process. As I mentioned, we're on our second NIPA with them. So we're going back and forth. We're pretty close to complete with that. The lot sizes vary. I think our smallest lot, I don't have any fun.
2.4 acres.
2.4 acres, and then we have a 70-acre lot, a larger 70-acre lot to the west of this that's going to remain undeveloped as part of this. That was where the zone changes in terms of Luzerne to a larger lot coverage. So right now it's just being left alone with no plans of development at this time. What else? It's a pretty straightforward subdivision. I think I, kind of leave it in terms of the board or the public has any questions on it, we can answer them from there.
Okay, do we have the microphone for the? I guess we'll do it this way with the audience. right? If anybody has a public comment, raise your hand, give your name and address, and Chris will make sure you get a microphone so you can be heard.
Well, give your name and address once you got the microphone.
Yeah, I have to get the microphone.
Mary Ellen Allison, Hall Hill Road. I have some questions for the board first before I ask questions about the subdivision. My first question is about the advertising for this public hearing, because it is a public hearing. It wasn't advertised on any of the social media. So I just wondered how people were supposed to know, because even on the town website, it's only listed on the planning board page. It's not on the main page.
Karen, can you answer that? So
It's not legally required to be anywhere but whatever the official newspaper is and on the town website. So it sounds like those two things were satisfied.
Okay, I'm only going on the other boards. When there is a public hearing on any matter that involves the town, it's advertised well, and this, I didn't even get a letter about it. So I don't know how many people are actually aware that this is happening today. That was just an observation and a question. My second question is for the planning board. Does the town have a set of guidelines that define what we are looking for in a proposed subdivision?
yes, we have several, we have a subdivision book that every one of us has. So we do have a set of guidelines to follow.
Are there any provisions in there for the type of housing that's built in a development? For example, a percentage for maybe low income or moderately priced homes, or accessible for disabled people or seniors?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
We didn't actually write it. The subdivision rules, so, you know. I think the town board, wrote the subdivision rules, but there's the book, we have to follow that, but we didn't actually write those rules, so.
okay. This question is kind of a general question about all of the development that's being proposed. Can the town handle the increased demand for services like trash collection, recycling, plowing, road maintenance, and mail delivery? Anybody looked into that?
If I could jump in here, most of those issues are going to be covered under the secret review, which the board just hasn't done yet, but literally all those questions you're asking are included in that form. They just haven't gotten to that process yet.
So is the board going to vote on this today without that stuff, that information?
They cannot vote until they do secret.
Will there be another public hearing when that information is available to the public?
I don't know what the board is gonna do tonight, but they do have to do secret before they approve it. So I don't know if they want to approve it tonight or if they're gonna keep the public hearing open. That's up to them.
Okay. What about, has anybody, this is along the same lines, has anybody looked into the impact on our volunteer fire department or the EMS services? How about law enforcement, which we depend on the county for that? Has anybody looked into any of that?
Those again are included in the secret process.
Okay. This is just a comment before I ask my questions about the specific subdivision. Before the town pushes ahead with any of these proposed projects, perhaps they should conduct a feasibility study to answer some of these logistical questions rather than rushing in to approve some kind of a development. If you look to the incident with the short-term rentals in town, we were scrambling to correct errors, and we're still correcting errors with that. If we get in front of this before it happens, instead of letting unguided development occur, it would be better for the town. I just think there should be some guidelines set out for that. With regards to the Reed subdivision, my concern is for the safety and health of the environment and the neighborhood. What impact will it have on the lake? I know the gentleman at the table said that it's got sandy soil, but my concern is about that runoff that the town doesn't want to handle. Why doesn't the town want to handle it? And there's a reason that they don't want to handle it.
It's because they'd have to hire somebody to do that full time, and that would cost an expense for the town. So, you know, that's part of the reason you didn't want to do it. If it wasn't for that, I think you would do it. I mean,
Okay.
it takes training and specialization just to do it, but it doesn't take long, but you still have to have somebody trained to do it, which means takes out our taxes to pay somebody to do that. And I don't think Ronnie wanted to go there.
Okay. What about the impact on the groundwater? There are people that are living in the immediate area that have wells. What would the extra draw on groundwater in that area have? What kind of an impact would that have on those people?
Well, they're doing the testing. It shouldn't have any effect on anybody else. Every piece of property is separate, correct, guys? If you want to answer that for them.
You know, we have done some test wells in there. There's ample water supply. Water source is good. We don't have any issue with that. And, you know, they'll all be the DOH spec cased wells. As far as your question with the stormwater, all stormwater has to be contained on the subject property. You can't discharge off the subject property onto neighboring properties, town highways, and or over toward the lake. So all the stormwater that she's referring to is designed to be retained on the parcel. And then the question was, who's going to maintain that? A lot of municipalities ask for easements to be able to maintain the stormwater themselves during the act of maintaining the road. Some municipalities, as you said, do not. And then, for example, I live in a subdivision where I have 2 or 3 stormwater detention areas, and my HOA takes care of the stormwater retention areas and not part of the town. Town only takes care of what's within the 50-foot right of way. But again, no stormwater, and Matt Huntington, the engineer, will be able to answer that question in a lot more detail. But New York State Code does not allow you to discharge stormwater onto neighboring parcels in any more than what is currently going off the property. Pre-development.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a groundwater impact perspective, in terms of wastewater and stormwater, you know, there's certain regulations Department of Health has. For instance, your leach field needs to be 2 feet above the seasonal high groundwater table. Additionally, your infiltration practices, which are the 3 infiltration basins we have for stormwater, have a 3-foot separation above groundwater. We performed 8 or 9 test pits on the site, throughout the site, and we did not encounter groundwater at any of them. So we're certainly well above groundwater table level. There was a test well that was drilled on the site that yielded about 10 gallons a minute, which is excellent for a residential use. So in terms of impacts to groundwater, there should be none really from this.
That answer your question?
Well, it leads to my next question. I'm hearing a lot of HOA being handed around, which is kind of a foreign term in Lake Luzerne.
Association.
Oh, I know what it
Oh, okay.
stands for. It's not something that I grew up with in Lake Luzerne. But with an HOA and a maybe gated or ungated community, there usually are treated lawns. I'm worried about the chemicals that might be used to produce a lawn in a forest area and what that runoff could do to the other people's wells and to the lake. And even if they're treating the stormwater on the property, if it's going back into the ground, it's going to be going into somebody's well. Crickets. Okay.
Well,
I mean, that would be a townwide decision. That's
Right.
not something
We'll take that into
that's
consideration.
That would be a townwide law that would need to be passed. I mean, you have to ask the town board if they'd be willing to take up, you know, that legislation. You know, way to regulate.
Again, that's why I asked about the guidelines, because I do think that we need to have development in our town, but I do think it needs to be guided properly. And there's a huge movement in the Adirondacks with very good guidelines already mapped out in many communities north of here. And if the information is out there for our town, I have offered it to the town board. I'm just making you aware of that. My next question is, has there been a traffic study assessment done to determine the impact of the construction stage and then the long-term impact of the increased traffic on the narrow windy road?
We haven't even approved anything yet, so we haven't done any kind of studies at all at this point.
So would you approve it before you did a study like that? Because that seems like you've already approved something and then there could be a problem.
We haven't approved anything. We just made, in order for it to go forward, the APA wanted us to be the lead agency, which is basically, we have to make the decision anyway. But other than that, that's why we're having the public hearing. We haven't decided to do anything at all. This is just the first step. And
Okay.
eventually there'll be another public hearing down the road if we decide to close this one and approve it. But yeah. This is just first stage.
Okay, that helps me because I've never been through this process before. So I'll just continue to ask my questions. I wondered if there was a survey done to determine if there are any Native American artifacts on the property, because that is a real possibility in this area. There's a history of it in our area.
These are literally all secret questions.
Okay.
These will all be answered at some point in this process. And it might be helpful to know that this is just a preliminary plat, which means once this is approved, they still have to go through this entire process again for the final plat.
Okay,
So the very beginning of the entire process. They
Okay.
haven't even considered some of these things because we haven't gone through that process yet.
okay, thank you. And then my other concern is for the 70-acre parcel that is supposed to remain undeveloped. At the last meeting, it was said it will remain undeveloped, but at this meeting, the gentleman at the table said with no plans right now, or that leaves a lot of play in there. And if it is to remain undeveloped, I would like to know how that's going to be insured and who's going to police that to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future.
Go ahead.
Okay, as far as the density calculations requirement of the APA, which is the 8.5 acres. You use all the density in the APA with this subdivision, but they try to encourage clustering them in the most optimal locations on the property, and that's what we have done. So as far as that, is there another use for that? Yeah, somebody may want to build a large home down there or something, unless the APA changes their zoning and the town changes their zoning. That's basically what it's going to remain as one large lot. Is there any future development plans for that? We're not even proposing a house on it at this time. But I can't predict what's going to happen 10 or 20 years from now. As far as your question on the archaeological, yes, there was a full archaeological study done on this site, and they found
Nothing. We actually got a no impact letter from SHPO.
So one of the requirements when you go through all these with the APA, the DEC, the DOH, local municipalities, state as Environmental Quality Review Act, is you have to go through all those studies. It's a requirement. So we did have SHPO there review it. We had an archaeologist look at all that. You also have the APA reviewing all this. As far as a traffic study, we'll be doing some site distances for ingress and egress from the road along Hidden Valley Road. As far as an actual traffic study, 9 new homes that build out, you're looking at about 11 to 12 vehicle trips per hour at peak hour, which is according to the DOT standards, that's not even enough to warrant us to do a full-fledged traffic study.
Thank you. I would just like to remind the board that the Lake Vennard area is a tourist draw in our town. People come to this area specifically, not for subdivisions, but to enjoy the beauty and the nature and the quaintness of the towns. There are places for development in our town, and we definitely need housing, especially for the people that live and work here. But I would caution quick moving on anything like this until there's more information and until the town has a better plan going forward. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, it's Barbara Conchatori, Ridgewood Drive. Just had a couple of questions. The last meeting, it was specifically sworn to that there would be no access from Hidden Valley into the development. And if you look as a single, and there is a single driveway that's listed on the map. So could you address that a little bit and explain why you said no access from Hidden Valley except for the main cul-de-sac? And now all of a sudden there's a driveway there. off of Hidden Valley.
We always had one lot that fronted on Hidden Valley, but we actually had two. And with the recreation, we still have that one parcel we're reconfiguring, and it's probably one of the largest in the subdivision. And we always had that on the board, even last submission, that we showed that one driveway, all the new lots created are coming off of the new road.
Okay, well, we couldn't see that from the meeting the last time around, but we did go to the town to look. And no offense, but it was your statement that there would be no driveways onto Hidden Valley. And now that's changed.
I don't think, it may have been misinterpreted if we stated that, but that driveway has been there since the beginning of this process, and it was what was presented to the board last month.
Okay, I guess the other question I had, is there going to be any lake access afforded these people who would be moving into this new development?
No.
Okay.
Chris, I think the gentleman in front of her wanted to raise his hand. Oh, you know what? Okay. Anyone else? All right, so at this point,
Anyone on Zoom?
you want to check Zoom? Is anyone on? Okay. Check it first. After last month.
You check what?
You unmuted, right?
Yeah.
I meant them to check it.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Richard.
Okay, this is Richard Llewellyn. My wife and I own 32 Hidden Valley Road, 37, I'm sorry, which is right next to the development. Can I find out how close the nearest house is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an exact measurement, but I would say several hundred feet at this point.
Okay,
And are they gonna keep building on this? Right now, they've got 10 or 9.
they said. Oh, okay, that's all I had.
Yeah, at this point, I don't believe you said they weren't going to build any more than what they had on there.
Yeah, like I believe them.
Stop it.
Anyone else, Chris? Okay, at this point, we're not going to close the hearing. It's going to stay open. So at our next month's meeting, if somebody wants to comment again, we'll have on our agenda, we'll have a period where people can comment. So, there's no action being taken, just everything's, staying open.
I do have one question, I guess,
Sure.
from our end. What at this point does the planning board need from us to proceed with the seeker process? Because we're now at the public hearing, we have submitted the full EAF. We've hit everything on the site plan review checklist. So is there anything more from us that you need to advance this as we come into the next month?
I think we need to hear from Cedarwood before you address that.
Yes.
However you want,
Michael,
however you want to handle it.
So, what I'll say regarding the seeker process is we'll get with the town and review the part 1 that was submitted. And, we will help them out with coordinated review. And then there's the 30-day waiting period. And then at the next month meeting, we should be able to, move forward with parts 2 and 3 if everything's all set to go. Does that answer your question with that?
Certainly does.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. And then I'll defer to the planning board. I don't know if you want me to bore everybody one by one with our comments or just go over major ones. happy to handle.
I think for the public, maybe you should go over the major comments so that
Okay.
they know what's going on.
All right, I will just skip briefly. We had a few general comments on here. Just stating that this project's going to have to comply with New York State Realty subdivision law, which they've already brought up with DOH review, Department of Health. Again, number 2 is the seeker action, it being a type 1 action, which you guys have already stated. You submitted the part 1 long EAF, which will move forward on that. Next one, planning board should be copied on all correspondence with APA, DOH as well. And then we're requesting that the planning board receive a copy of the approved SWIP and notice of intent with DEC when we get to that point. The SWIP may also be handy. I know, Matt, if you do have it ready to submit it, just so that we can get it to the town. I know the highway superintendent wants to review it, and just one of their concerns is evaluate the impacts with the stormwater, what the practices are and what the maintenance can be, so they can make an educated decision whether or not they're going to move forward with taking over the road and stormwater, or, either or.
Can you explain to the public what SWIP is?
Yeah, sorry, that's a stormwater pollution prevention plan. So what they're going to have to do is, since it's disturbance over 1 acre for the proposed subdivision, you guys are just complying with general permit, correct?
Yeah.
So they're going to have to comply with the general permit with Department of Environmental Conservation. So they're going to be the main reviewing agency that's going to be reviewing the SWIP on the front end. And then we will also review, not from a technical standpoint, just to assist the town with any questions the highway department may have, because they would be the ones, if they sign up to take over the stormwater, what the additional maintenance requirements would be on the chosen practices, because there's going to be sedimentation basins that'll eventually need to be cleaned out, infiltration practices. There might be mowing and maintenance and upkeep of plants and other items. Going into the next items, basically, we just reviewed the subdivision regulations. So Article 4, Section 4.6, applicants must comply with the provisions for the recreation section. So that's going to be a planning board decision moving forward. There's a lot of, it's probably a couple pages long, so I don't know if you want me to read it right now, or it can be evaluated moving forward on, what the planning board is going to determine moving forward, because that'll be your discretion and decision whether or not, that'll apply to the project. Article 5, Section 6.21, 2C requires a test well of sufficient yield and water quality. The test well location, yield, and water quality should also be approved by Department of Health. So again, that's typically handled by Department of Health regulations and review with Realty subdivision. They're going to review all the sanitary septic system components and the wells also for water quality and yield, make sure it meets all the current standards. We typically stay out of that, but since it was listed in the code, we did bring it up. So that would have to be provided moving forward. Article 7, Section 7.3, the applicant must obtain a grading permit before removing any vegetation or topsoil in excess of 1,000 square feet. So that would be a building permit as they move forward. So essentially, they're going to have this stormwater pollution prevention plan as well, which is going to cover the majority of these items. So by the time you get to the final plat review and it is approved, that would be submitted, and the same thing for individual lots as they move forward. So when they pull their building permit, they'd move forward with that item. Appendix C A1, drawings must clearly be marked preliminary plat. So that's just a generic item for the meeting tonight. Appendix C, item 2, the applicant must show probable future street and drainage system in the remaining portion of the tract. So if there is going to be development on that future parcel, maybe just show the roadway that's going to lead over to it and what could potentially be built there. If there is no proposed development as is stated, then obviously there wouldn't be anything else shown. Then we get into our section with specific comments. So drawing C 0.00 zoning statistics table. The table indicates that the lot size is 95 acres, will be future development on the remaining 72 acres. So again, this was answered already. This table shows a density of 11 buildings. However, only 9 developed lots are shown on the drawings. And again, that was addressed at the beginning. Drawing C 0.2. This is our recommendation, and I'm sure to be flushed out with Department of Health as well. A note should be added to the drawing stating that all primary and reserve absorption field locations at each lot must have 2 perk tests performed and 1 test pit executed prior to installing system. Based on specific field data, on-site systems may have to be redesigned. So that, again, that's just a generic item as they move forward with DOH with Realty subdivision. You know, they don't require upfront that every single residence have test pits and percolation tests done for the septic system. So as they move forward and that is done, when the individual lots are moving forward, you know, the systems may have to be revised. The next item, stormwater basins will require drainage easements at overflow locations. That's what, just when it's going to cross, you know, property boundaries as is shown in there. So I know we discussed that earlier with Matt. Drawing C 0.3, lot 1 absorption field location must be reconfigured to have absorption field laterals run parallel to the ground contours. Again, it's just a minor thing that'll be flushed out with Department of Health when they progress and submit their final plat design. You know, they advance the engineering considerably for the preliminary plat. Drawing C 1.10, the site distance at the location where the proposed subdivision roadway connects to Hidden Valley Road needs to be evaluated. Again, that was discussed earlier that was going to be completed. We have a generic one on here. Any future development at this proposed subdivision may require a traffic study. Again, as was discussed, it's considered minor impacts at this stage where we don't feel it necessitates a traffic study. But moving forward, and they stated that they are not going to, but if there was additional development that tripped the need for a traffic study, that's just our recommendation. In the final comment, it says, it is recommended that the updated engineering plans and stormwater pollution prevention plan be submitted for review to the town in Cedarwood for a final review as the engineering design and permitting process progress. The town should fully review the final roadway design and stormwater design, including anticipated future operation and maintenance costs associated with the project if the town and highway department choose to take ownership of the roadway and stormwater practices. Again, we just, you know, wanted to put that in there so that the town can make an educated decision on what the future O&M costs may be associated with the specific practices. So if it's determined that, you know, the town doesn't have the resources or capability to keep up with that it's just known at this stage before you accept it, and it's essentially too late. So that really concludes our comments.
Okay, so as the public can see, there's a lot to go through still. A lot of regulations by the DOH and which you guys have to comply with in order to, if it is approved. Yes. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, they're still up here, so go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify something.
Name and address.
My name is Brent Reed, Lake Luzerne. To my parents, they're trying to do this. I just had a comment about, I just want to clarify something. I believe it was said that there's no subdivisions in Lake Venar. That's completely not true. There's a major subdivision across 9N. Probably got 100 houses in it.
I don't remember that comment, to be honest with you. I didn't know anybody saying there was no subdivisions.
Did you say that? What did you say then? Why don't you clarify? Well, that's an HOA.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I guess it is. According to,
All right, all comments should be directed at the board only. And only the board should be answering questions. So that can be back.
That is an HOA across the street. Yes, it is.
you're all set. Thanks.
See you next month.
Okay.
Thanks.
Next, we have a presentation of a sketch plan for the Sagamore Drive subdivision.
Oh.
Thank you.
For this a snow game.
This is that state.
That's all set.
Yes, I just had a quick question.
Sure.
Now, is this Luzerne Woods, Luzerne Estates? Because we got two different names on this. sheet.
The property right now is under two different companies, Luzerne Woods LLC and Luzerne Estates. But they are have shared ownership. They're proposing it as a single project.
So is it going to be? So it's going to be both together? Is that what you're saying?
Right now, I don't know if they'll decide to transfer ownership from one to the other company. But that's the way it's currently held under two different companies that have shared ownership. Shared owners, we should say.
So this is just a sketch plan about what you're thinking about doing, correct?
Yes, so my name is Brandon Ferguson with Environmental Design Partnership. The clients here, Luzerne Woods LLC and Luzerne Estates. Mike Roman and Eric Moses, they are a couple of the owners. They're actually on Zoom here tonight. They couldn't make it to the meeting, unfortunately. So the existing site consists of 7 parcels with about a little under 33 acres of total land. It has frontage on Sagamore Street, Lake Tua Road, and access off Millrose Lane as well. Right now, this land is vacant and mostly wooded, although the largest parcel, which is over 17 acres, had recently been logged. The zoning in this area is hamlet residential. And we're proposing single family and 2-family subdivisions, so these are allowed uses in the zone. APA has a land use of hamlet here. So there is no APA density or size, lot size requirements in their hamlet zone. And typically subdivisions under 99 lots are not jurisdictional by APA, but we submitted a GIF with the sketch plan to get an idea on what their any possible jurisdiction that I have with the project. We haven't gotten any response back yet. We've submitted that and started that process. So the applicants are looking to develop a cluster style subdivision that fits into the existing site and topography and the landscape. They want to make kind of a community of a mix of different housing styles and units. And they want to kind of interconnect it with a multi-use path to create pedestrian and bicycle and golf cart kind of interconnectivity through the development as well. They're proposing private roads, actually more shared driveways, I should say, off Sagamore, Millrose Lane, and Lake Tua Road to access these parcels. So there's a few separate access points. And they're all going to be dead end roads to prevent through traffic coming through and people using this as kind of a shortcut to get around. Each road would end in a cul-de-sac or a turnaround that would be capable of handling emergency vehicles such as fire trucks. Total, we're proposing 23 lots. 8 of them would be single family accessed off Millrose Lane. 4 would be single family off Sagamore Street. 8 would be single family off Lake Tua Road. 2 would be 2 families directly off Sagamore Street. And then the remaining parcel would be owned and maintained by the HOA. By keeping smaller lots and maintaining the remaining lands as part of the HOA, it kind of helps control unapproved development on the property. Everybody's gonna have their parcel, then the HOA will maintain the remaining lands, which will remain mostly wooded, except for like stormwater areas, roads, things like that. We've also marked a portion of the lots off Lake Tua Road as kind of seasonal use homes. So they're trying to, when they're looking at this development, they're thinking about marketing it to multiple uses. We're gonna have your year-round residents, but they know there's also a demand for seasonal use up here too. And then we have some 2-family as well in order to kind of break up and be able to market to different people with different needs. The 2-family off of Sagamore Street would be set back a ways off the road to kind of maintain a little bit of buffer toward that road. the applicant, they also own Camp Truck Road, that runs down to the existing beach at the end of it, on Lake Luzerne. So they are proposing to connect the inner multi-use path to that beach access. And they would allow pedestrians, bicycles, golf carts, and those people to access that beach area there now as kind of an amenity to the subdivision. And I know that's kind of a shared beach use area. The applicant owns the beach, but I know the other people have rights to use it right now as well, and they don't allow cars really to park up there other than for drop-offs. So that would be the same kind of thing. This would be, golf carts, bicycles, pedestrians coming up there. Cars wouldn't be allowed to park along Lake Tour Road.
Can I just ask you a quick question about that?
Sure.
So the people that live along Camp Tech Road, right, they're part of a.
Oh, yes, Chem Tech. I said,
I don't know if I'm saying it right.
sorry. No, you're right.
So they have beach access there, right? And they have an HOA there?
So I don't believe it's an HOA. I don't know the legal, and Eric here, he's on Zoom tonight. He might be able to answer that question as well. He's actually my understanding is it falls under the Lake Luzerne Woods LLC owns Camp Trek Road. They have the ownership of that road. It falls under their ownership.
And that's
Same, and that
different
includes that
LLC?
beach area.
Okay.
So it's
So-
all under that same LLC.
Would the houses along Camp Tech now be part of this new HOA, or they would be a separate HOA? And I guess how does that all tie in?
I think they would still remain separate. They would still maintain their rights to that
And then
beach
they would have an
area.
Agreement with the
Yeah,
new
there was-
HOA.
Yeah, because I think they have deeded probably access rights or something to that beach area.
So I guess,
That he would maintain.
I don't know, legally, I guess, how do these existing camps make that agreement with the new development for the beach access would be my question.
I think it's deeded because we had, last night I was on another board. And part of they have in their deed access to the lake.
So that covers no matter what they do to this large parcel.
Right.
Okay,
still
so
have
they could put
access.
1,000 units there and they'd all have the beach access no matter what.
It's in their deed.
Okay, I'm just curious. Okay.
It's not, can I chime in? Hi, this is Eric Moses. I also live on Camp Tech Road, so I have a vested interest in seeing the area protected. They have no deeded ownership of the beach, but they can, by their deed, can access the lake via the land at the end of Camp Tech Road. So that will not change. The HOA will be developed to take care of the property that we're talking about developing on the other side of Sagamore.
Yeah.
There is a
Yes,
beach
yeah,
there now.
yeah.
Yes, there is a beach there now, and
Right up there in the corner right here.
and it's kind of, I don't know if it'd be part of this project or a separate project. I know Eric has talked about wanting to make some improvements to that beach as well to be able to accommodate the people that use it, whether it be fixing the retaining wall there as now, it's got a few structural issues. Adding more, kayak slips and stuff like that to kind of maintain and improve that beach area for not just this HOA, but for the existing users as well. So then kind of continue on a little bit here. For utilities, so there is public water in this area, so we would propose to extend the water mains off Sagamore Street and Lake Tour Road and onto these private drives. We did grant an easement to the town for those with fire hydrants provided at the end of each road in accordance with New York State Fire Code.
Good quick question before we go past that. Have you checked with the town to make sure they can handle the extra water?
Well, that would be part of the process. Right now, obviously, we're just in sketch plan. We'd have to do, if we're extending municipal water lines, we're gonna have to go to Department of Health. We're gonna have to do a water analysis, get some pressure testing, figure out what their capacity is before we could say for sure, but that's the plan at this time with this sketch plan.
And if the town requires like extra pumps or anything like that, you'll provide them, then turn them over after they're all done to the town for ownership.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what it needs, right? I mean, if it's too costly, then, public water might not be an option, but if it's something that some upgrades need to be made to the town that are financially feasible, then that could be something that could be discussed, but yeah, we're far ways from figuring out exactly what the capacity of that water is and where we would end up with that at this point, but we'd like to extend water into this development. Each lot would have individual septic systems. These would be regulated by Department of Health as well. As with the previous subdivision, this would have to go through DOH Realty subdivision approval. They go out there, they look at the soils, they look at the test pits,
and make sure everything's feasible for individual septic systems before they grant their approval of the subdivision as well. And right now, the majority of the site really is kind of a large bowl. If any of you are familiar with it, but everything kind of comes off the road and kind of comes down to the middle. So stormwater runoff really shouldn't be an issue running out to neighborhood properties. However, this would disturb enough acreage where we'd have to do stormwater management in accordance with any New York State DEC regulations. So as kind of mentioned previously, be a SWIP, speedies permit, all that with this as well. So I guess kind of in conclusion, the presentation, the applicants are looking to develop this vacant land in a way that's respectful of the land and the existing landowners in the area, whilst providing a variety of home styles and amenities to fit, both future year-round and seasonal use residents. So turn it back to the board if you got any questions or comments.
Over here, where, as you're coming in off of Lake Tor Road, into where you have the seasonal homes
Mhm.
to the right, you've got like two structures. One's the house, what's the other?
So those are kind of the seasonal use, and they've been playing around with some ideas if they decide to build out that section themselves and sell them as seasonal use kind of cabins. And one of them was kind of doing a sort of treehouse type cabin type structure with multiple units on it. But they don't, that was what we have on the concept plan, but they haven't dialed in anything of that nature yet.
Karen, is that something they could have like two, right?
I mean, they'd be connected. They wouldn't be two separate primary structures. They would have an interconnection, whether it be a breezeway or a some
So
kind of
somebody
connection.
would rent and then they just
They would
go to their tree house.
they would put them for sale. They would sell them.
When you first provided me with this, we had a conversation about tiny homes and dwelling units, and that under the zoning ordinance, the definition of a dwelling unit is 500 square feet. So is that what your
Yes.
plan is?
Yeah, oh
with
yeah, it would
that?
definitely, these would definitely meet, they would be over that size.
Yeah.
They'd be smaller. They wouldn't be, if they're doing seasonal use, they're probably gonna be smaller than a typical single family dwelling, but they'd be well over the,
But each one of these parcels that you have the two brown blocks on is going to be just one dwelling.
one dwelling, yes.
Okay, it's not two dwellings on
Yep.
each lot.
Yeah, I guess that was my point.
Yes, it'd be just one dwelling, yeah.
And
Yep.
I had a question on the furthest one in that group that has like a keyhole
Mhm.
entry to the lot. There's no driveway shown or anything. And for reasons of building, construction, how are they going to access that parcel to build on?
Yeah, so I mean, you can see, kind of see down the middle, we have the kind of multi-use path. We probably have to widen that a little bit to allow access for construction into there. At that time, but the idea is that people would kind of park out the road and kind of walk a little bit into these parcels instead of having everybody have drive-up units. That was the idea. We're definitely willing to hear suggestions like that. We're here for
My
concept.
concern is in issuing a building permit, you have to have enough access onto that parcel to be able to bring in construction vehicles. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm questioning you. How are you going to do that?
Yeah, so that would be, even if the way it was set up now, there'd be easements involved as well in order to grant people access to all their sites over there. That's something we can talk with them about and work out how they would construct that as well.
And what about emergency vehicles?
So emergency vehicles, they were coming off Lake Tour Road. We have a turnaround at the end. And we would make sure that they can get close enough to those proposed dwellings to meet fire code.
So that's something that is in the New York State Fire Code, the distance on those to the dwelling without having a road provided.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's something we can check with the county on.
Eric Moses contributed a chat comment. It would be the first unit built.
Yeah, because if they went with this style unit in the end, it'd be something they would be building as well.
Okay. Are all these paths that are in brown that they indicate 8 feet wide, is the intent to have like golf carts for travel around
Yes,
this
yeah.
property?
Yes, they want to keep maybe part of it with the lake shore and that access as well. They want to keep car traffic to a minimum. They don't want everybody driving their car down to the
Are
lake
they
area.
expecting boats to be put in at the lake access?
I don't think there's a boat launch there now. They would have kayaks and stuff there. People would be able to store the kayaks at the beach, which I
No
believe.
motorized.
I don't think there's a motorized launch there now. And I don't know if there's any docking for a motorized boat.
They're not allowed on the lake.
You can have a
Yeah, well,
7.5 is the maximum horsepower.
We have a response from Eric Moses. Eric, I'll unmute you. Go ahead.
Okay, at Camp Tech Beach, the beach at the end of the road that the dozens of neighbors use now, we have posted the exact same rules as the Lake Luzerne Town Beach over by the middle school, as far as storage and access and rules about motorized and fishing, exact same rules. And the intention is to not change any rules of the beach and the way the neighbors use it as now, just to allow the new houses to also be able to use that beach. And anybody who comes down there knows we're far from any sort of density issue down there. Since I've taken over ownership, we've built kayak racks and moved the 20 or so vessels that were scattered along the beach onto racks. So the intention would be to maybe build one more rack, follow the exact same rules, no boat launch, nothing changes down at the beach, just a few more faces.
How many, how many household units would there be in this plan right here?
so there would be 24.
24 household units? For how many families would that be?
Would be 24 families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would each be entitled to have 1 or 2 kayaks or canoes in storage?
I don't know what the rules Eric would want to put in place for that right now. I know maybe Eric can answer that as well.
Yeah, Howard, right now we have space, extra space, and we run it basically as many people, however they need, they can ask. And some people keep 1, 2, 3. Most people keep 0 or 1 there. So we can certainly make room for another rack or even 2 if we have to.
So conceivably, there could be another 24 to 30
Sure. Could be.
kayaks or canoes.
It'll still cover less square feet than the 24 that were sitting right on the beach when I bought it. So the racks will still, racking and stacking them the way we have will still economize space and leave more room for people to lounge on the beach. And frankly, you know, everybody's deeded access does not call for beach space and beach rights and lounging and storage or anything like that at the beach. It strictly specifies access to swim in the lake by crossing the property. So there's more room for people to lay about now. All the neighbors seem pretty happy with the way things have been over there. I know everybody would like to see the walls get fixed, and so would we. So a project like this can hopefully help with the economics of replacing the retention wall without having to ask the neighbors that share the use of the beach to help contribute to that process.
Thank you.
What do you think that the cost of the homes are going to be?
I mean, some are gonna be market rate, you know, you're gonna have some seasonal use. If those go through, you know, that would, you know, probably be a little lower price range because they're not year-round homes. I don't know if they figured out an exact price point that they're hoping to hit you on these homes or not. When the housing market's always in a little bit of flux, so.
Are there preset designs for some of these, or is it just?
They don't have any preset designs at this time. No, they're, you know, some of them might be for sale lots. Some people come in and just build their own custom home there. Some may be lots that they, you know, offer up to build homes on too as well.
And 1 duplex.
We have two duplex, 2-family units, yep, off of Sagamore Street. Those would be units that they would build themselves and then.
So obviously you're going to have an HOA, right?
Yep, there would be an HOA. Yeah. Yeah, the HOA would maintain the roads, stormwater, remaining lands, and the pathway as well.
I'm a little confused about, maybe you could clarify, the Lake Tour Road portion where people would park on the road, that kind of thing. Can you describe in a little more detail, like what that may look like? I'm very familiar with that whole area, and I'm just trying to get an understanding of what this might look like with cars parked along Lake Tour Road.
Yeah, so, well, they want to be parked along Lake Tour Road. They'd be parked off of the private road coming into the site, right? So it'd be the
Yeah,
private
this is Lake
property.
Tour.
And the idea is to try to keep that area right there less clear, maintain trees, maintain a real natural feel up there. It's pretty wooded right now, and kind of maintain that by putting in smaller seasonally used homes that people can just, come in the summertime or, late spring, early fall, park their car, and then they kind of just have a short little walk to their home instead. And instead of putting these long driveways that are going to add impervious area, they're going to add tree clearing, and they're going to be more of a disturbance back there.
So this gray road coming in off of Tour, that's where parking is, and then they would just have a short walk to their
Yes. Yep.
property.
I like it. I think this is a lot different than what you originally came with, which is the road coming through and everything divided.
You changed it from the original plan, didn't you?
Yeah, because it just came.
I know you had the tiny homes at one point.
Yeah, there were tiny homes in there at one point. They were kind of thinking that, they've gone through a number of ideas on this property. They've kind of fallen to this design as probably kind of fitting the land best and having the least impact on the area, kind of spreading out the development in these kind of small cluster areas that can support it. Breaking it up with multiple access points instead of having one road in and out that's taking all 24 units. So yeah, they kind of into this design.
Are you gonna provide any, like playground area or anything for these homes in the HOA lands?
That's something we can definitely talk about and consider. I know we had discussion, they wanted to do a maintenance barn. We have it shown on the plan as part of one of the duplex lots right now, actually.
Right.
As a place where people can store some extra equipment, or the HOA can store their equipment that they might own to maintain the land. I know there's kind of a thing in the town where you can't have an accessory structure on a lot without a principal structure, and the barn would be considered accessory, so it gets a little complicated, but they do want to have amenities for the people within that HOA and that development, so we can definitely talk about other things like playground.
Well,
there.
part of our subdivision regulation for it does bring up recreation, whether it's up to the planning board if we feel that you should have one or not.
Okay. Yeah, and I think, the lake access too, I think, that provides a recreation opportunity for those residents as well.
And the trails.
And the trails, yeah.
The only, the only issue that I'm seeing right now on the road situation is Milrose Lane, where you're gonna start your entry off of Milrose, with snow removal with the town at this point. You're gonna have to work with them on how to, if yours is going to be privately maintained and the town is maintaining up to the end, there's gonna have to be some coordination with the town on how the town clears, basically, and
Yes.
leaves that open for you.
Yep, yeah, I think that's a discussion we can have definitely with the town and the highway department. Whether it be leaving some kind of cleared area off to the side where they can push their snow. Same with the HOA or how they want to coordinate. We could definitely meet with them and discuss that.
But the plan as of now is just to break it up into the lots and not do any immediate building, or you're kind of thinking.
They have to build the roads, the shared, access areas and stuff like that to access the lots, and They haven't really made their final decision whether or not they want to build some of the homes or not. I know that definitely those seasonal cottages, they probably would, the duplexes. And then once you get into the residential homes, it depends on, maybe the marketability of if people want custom built homes, or if they want to just buy lots, or how they want to do it. Probably some would go for sale and some would be ones that they would work with a contractor to build.
Karen, I got a question for a duplex, which is two family. What's required for acreage? And
I think it was with water, because I think it was 30,000 square feet.
Yeah.
so you're allowed to have that on that property?
I'll look at my table, but I'm pretty sure they are, yes, because it's almost in every zone. Yeah, it's permitted,
Okay,
and the size.
I think this is the first time I've seen duplex being presented to the town board or planning board.
Two-family home, either public sewer or water, is 30,000 square feet for the lot, is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and those would actually be served off of Sagamore Street for water, so they would just be services and not main extension for those.
I'm assuming you took into account all of the setback requirements and in where you've placed these.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
So what are you looking for tonight?
Some of these comments you've given me are very good so far, just to get a general idea of how you guys feel about the overall subdivision, any concerns you have, any potential issues you see, things you do like, things you don't like. I guess that's kind of what we're looking for tonight, is just get some feedback from you guys before we take the next step and start to go into more detailed design, getting ready for preliminary, start reaching out to the agencies with these plans.
I just would offer a thought that, excuse me, I know you put a huge investment of time and energy and money in these kind of projects. And over the past 15 years, as you know, if you followed Lake Luzerne, there were a number of proposals that originally came before the planning board, zoning board, like the East River Estates, which barely finished a third of its objective. The Mount Luzerne project, which never made progress, Lake Luzerne, Pazarelli subdivision. You're seeing what's going on with the Reed subdivision. So I guess the question is, to make it worth your while, what kind of market research are you doing in order to have the assurance that this could even be successful?
I think that's a question Eric would probably be best suited to answer. He's still there. There he is.
Well, Howard, that's a great question. And, I have, fortunately, I come with a real estate broker, spouse of mine, and she's with Sotheby's or maybe it's not Sotheby's anymore, but somebody professional, and they're doing their own market research. And, we're far from investing the kind of money you're referring to. We're just trying to get our due diligence done here. We don't know the costs of putting in these driveways / roads. We don't know if the profit margin is sensible. So we're just opening the dialogue right now. You can certainly get comps for what are selling. You can see the development that's going on at West Mountain now for single family homes. And, we're not, that's why we're trying to build several different styles too in one location so that we're hedging our bet as well. We don't need to sell 25, large 4-bedroom single family homes. It'll be a mix, but I guess we can talk about this more, in a different forum if you'd like.
Are you planning on making any of them Airbnbs, just out of curiosity, which we don't really need anymore? I'd rather see the single family homes with actual families with children so we can boost our school population again. Even our population itself has gone down because of the Airbnbs.
And I mean, the thing is that these would be for sale units. So to say that nothing could ever become Airbnb, we can't say that because eventually it becomes out of their control, but they're looking to sell homes to families.
Yeah.
Could make a determination, right?
The HOA and the town also put in the recent short-term rental thing as well, or I don't know if that's passed yet, but I know that's.
Yeah,
discussion.
and they've limited it, the total number within the
Yeah.
town.
So that would, apply to this project as well. So if there even is ability to, or enough slots to do more.
I guess that would be just part of mine, trying to make it more affordable for families and the water situation too, although, I mean, there's tons of homes, but hopefully down the road, somebody's gonna develop property within the town limits where have more affordable housing closer to the downtown area. That's what we're hoping, but this would be a good start if we could get families in affordable homes.
Yeah, and I mean, some of this, obviously we got regular single family homes, but off of Lake Tour, some of those homes we're kind of keeping a little bit smaller lots to try to make it more affordable. Maybe those smaller homes there. And then the homes off of the duplex, the 2-family, usually doing that style home becomes more affordable. Cost of construction of those units goes way down. So when you're building 2 families in one structure. So hopefully that can help with some of that as well.
Any board members have any more questions?
Yes, again, back to the seasonal properties. I'm seeing the gray road area.
Mhm.
And then I see the emergency vehicle turnaround.
Yeah.
But then I see the small paths that go way back to the various other units. Are emergency vehicles, would they be accessible to those areas? Would they be able to?
Yeah, so we'll double check the codes because we'll make sure that we're meeting New York State Fire Code as far as distance from a building they have to be able to get to. And then make sure that whatever, as we progress with the design, that we meet that requirement.
Because I'm
Well,
just seeing this turnaround area, but then there's like, like a little cart path or a little path that goes to the various units and our homes and,
Especially the one in the back, right?
yeah, like how do you get back there with the fire truck?
Yeah, and I think, one option could be, and something we can look at too, is widening out that path for a certain distance. And maybe even having a gate there that a fire truck or emergency vehicle can get through, but
Yeah.
keep people from driving on it. That allows some access. So I think there's some options to make sure that we're meeting the emergency access requirements
Yeah.
for those parcels.
Okay.
You have any idea, you mentioned that this might be done kind of in phases with certain buildings being built first. Do you have any idea what order you'd be looking at?
They haven't discussed, phasing of it, which way they'll go first. Obviously, I think with this kind of setup, it lends itself to phasing, just because you have different roads coming in, building one at a time. But it's probably gonna depend on the final cost of everything as well as, what the market is at that point. Is more seasonal use, smaller homes, more of the market? Do they have to get some, some of the bigger home units in there first to make it profitable? So phasing is something they'll work through as we progress with this project to determine what that would end up looking like.
I have no more questions. Anyone else?
No, I don't have any questions.
Tony?
No.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
No.
We're just waiting for him to swap the tape out. Okay, next we have Evergreen Estates. And sorry, got your name.
Eric Sandblom from SRA Engineers.
So this was something that was approved years ago. Since you were here last, I've had occasions to talk to Mary, our lawyer, and just wanted to clarify some things about the subdivision. If you want to,
Sure. So I wasn't clear by the materials that you submitted. Was it finally approved? Or was it the preliminary plat that was approved in the past?
It was finally approved and the lots are created.
Okay, so the subdivision regulations say that any approval expires after 180 days. It can be extended for 2 90-day periods, but I believe we are past that.
We're several years past it.
So the board would have to approve this again. And it does appear that there are substantial changes to what was approved. So I had advised them that you should do another public hearing. Just because it's better to be safe if it's challenged, to have gone through that process than to have not.
Got it.
And I did just want to say that I believe it's subject to a realty subdivision. So that's going to be a type 1 secret. So
Got
they'll
it.
just need the long form part 1 before they do that process.
Okay. Yeah, I've got an inquiry into Department of Health, because it was approved and then the lots were created. It's unclear to us whether they will need to do the entire realty subdivision again. I did have a chance to talk with one of the engineers there, Dan McElrath, and he indicated that since we're not making any changes to the lot designs themselves, that they would not require, retesting the soil and redesigning the septic systems so what our approach has been is to just keep the old Gary Robinson designs for the lots themselves. So really the only changes we're talking about are within the area of the roadway. And so what we did back in January is we introduced the board back to this project again and actually indicate, the main reason was to identify changes to the design of the roadway that we felt were really warranted. And at that time, the board agreed that that those were reasonable changes. There's been coordination with the town highway foreman on that and that sort of thing. So once we got that, approval on really the basic geometric changes that we wanted to propose, now we've finished the entire road design. It meets that pretty much the design that was presented with some minor tweaks that were made in response to comments by Cedarwood Engineering that Jonathan provided for us. And so with this submittal, we address each of the comments that were provided. And thank you for clarifying the type 1 action, why it kicks it into that. I could just kind of explain how we've now finished the design. Really what we've done is we responded to those comments, but we also finished a new stormwater design. So basically, excuse me, my tripod is exceptionally awkward. So I didn't want to fumble with it. So I'm just going to do this this way here, if that's all right. So the previous design was a driveway with fully curbed with catch basins throughout, and all of it was to be diverted to a very large infiltration basin at the end of the driveway. So after, making some modifications with the grades up here, and by the way, the horizontal alignment of the road has not changed whatsoever from the original design. We're keeping it within what was established as a right of way there. But what we did is we took away the curbs. We have developed ditches along the sides of the road. And what we did is we did some more test pits out here. Number one, to design here. I wanted, since we're redesigning the stormwater, we're taking ownership of that. So I wanted to reassess the soils there. We did some test pits down there. And what we've done is we've developed an interim infiltration basin here because we had good conditions here. Not so much up here, but we could divert flows for the first part of the road to an infiltration basin as a midpoint here. And then that would overflow into the system again. And then we were able to greatly reduce the size of the infiltration basin at the end of the roadway. Now, another one of the comments that we responded to from the engineering review was that easements are needed for the drainage structures. So what we're showing are a couple of minor lot line revisions in order to comply with that requirement so that the town can have access to maintain those stormwater practices. Now, in light of your comments on the first agenda item, I think we have a little bit of coordination to do with the town on that. But this is not a subdivision that has any sort of a HOA that's been envisioned or anticipated or something like that. So there'd have to be some sort of arrangement made on how those are going to be maintained, because this is we all, in addition to designing these, we have developed the full SWIP, the stormwater pollution prevention plan, that includes during construction, but also there's aspects to the permanent stormwater treatment practices that are going to be here. And then I think
I don't know if the town right now does anything like that. When I talked to Ronnie Dool, it doesn't, he's the highway department.
Yep.
But somebody else that works for him helps him out, but it sounded like they didn't do that. That might be a problem. Stormwater. Because there's certain things that you have to go through to maintain it, correct?
Yeah, I mean, they receive stormwater and infiltrate, and there can be debris that collects in there, and there's certain maintenance things that need to happen over time.
And when it got explained to him, it sounded like it wasn't going to happen, but.
Well, since it appears that we're heading towards a public hearing, I guess what the most we can ask for tonight is, any of these additional comments. Ask if you could schedule the public hearing, and in the meantime, we'll work on getting some of these things answered or worked out.
I mean, this project obviously was approved a while ago. I mean, I walked it looks like it's going to be great, but we have to go through the process again because of, the time that's elapsed.
Yeah. I guess I have a question just on that. I mean, the lot, according to county, those lots exist. If you pull up the tax map, they're there. Does that play into it at all? Yes. Yeah, Paul Kersgaard is one of the owners here with me.
Well.
And yeah, so they've been paying taxes as
I'll let
individual
Mary take
lots.
care of that for me.
Doesn't.
There is one,
like it's been finalized.
okay, there is one house on one of the lots as well.
Okay, I mean, all of this should have been worked out before the lots were approved and built. So I would highly recommend that we do the process again, just because at this point, if it gets challenged and overturned, it's gonna, I think it'd be a big problem.
Okay.
So as long as the town goes through the process and they have they have a rational basis for whatever they decide, it should be upheld. And I just think it's safer for all of the parties to go through the process.
John,
Yes.
were you going to suggest that the SWIP be looked at again by our engineering company again? And if we've got to coordinate with Ronnie and with Mr.
His name's Rick, I think.
Sandboom
Yeah.
on the stormwater drainage stuff, it would be helpful to have it reviewed and make sure that the maintenance of it is going to be something that the town is going to be able to handle. That was the concern. It wasn't so much the road as
Right.
the
No, road's no
stormwater
problem as far as
management.
taking care of the road. It was the stormwater drainage. That was. Because from what I understand, somebody has to be trained to do that. Correct? I mean, you just can't, somebody off the street, oh, go do the stormwater drainage. Isn't that like a?
I mean, it's not highly specialized, but yes, you're right. I mean, they need to be trained in the proper.
According to the
I mean,
regulations, right?
Yep.
I mean, you can't just go in there with a bulldozer. I mean, obviously you got to go down with a shovel.
I mean, after the
shovel and.
yeah, so like during construction, there are inspections that need to be performed by someone who's qualified. The contractor has to have someone who is knowledgeable. But in the the maintenance of post-treatment practices, my experience is that an owner will just hire a contractor to do what needs to be done. And it's not like a specialized kind of, stormwater. You have to have a certification to maintain a stormwater system, really. It's
Right.
just, what needs to happen is right in the SWIP. I mean, we identify those tasks that need to be performed.
Because I don't believe we have anybody at this point.
Okay.
In the town. I think that was his concern.
Yeah.
If we did, so then he's got to go to, our conversation with him was, he'd have to go to the town board. Make sure somebody could do this, and it wouldn't just be yours now, it's gonna be. We take over the other one, be trained. It's probably not in the winter, it's probably, in the summer and the fall, whenever, to make sure they're clear and you gotta check them. From what I understand, that's how it's done. He's worried about getting the funding from the town board. And, somebody's gotta be trained, somebody's gotta do it. The person that's trained's gotta do it, so.
I mean, it's certainly something that, would behoove the town to look into, because it's
Well, we gotta
less
start
and
doing
less of
more
a
of these,
bar that would trigger stormwater treatment as regulations progress. And I think we're going to just see a lot more stormwater infrastructure. And then, whether it's, the towns or private developers or HOAs.
Right.
But this does appear to be something that needs to be figured out.
Well, if we have a public hearing next month, between now and then, we'll talk to Ronnie Dool and
Yeah,
I guess we'll have to get the town involved, Karen, in this, as far as stormwater drainage. I don't.
Well, I think, again, if you have it reviewed by the town's engineer again, and if he can, meet like with Ronnie and Mr. Sandblom as well, then some of this might be able to be ironed out. I don't know. I mean, it depends on how involved it is as far as the maintenance. I mean, it's not a decision that I'm
That we can make,
making.
they have to make it.
And you need to be informed to make the decision, and so does Ron at this point, and the town board. As when and if they accept the road and the stormwater maintenance, from them, rather than having them responsible for maintaining it. So you need to go through the process of having it reviewed and making sure that it's something that the town can handle and is willing to handle.
Can we go back to these lots and how they were assigned their own individual IDs,
Because it's got approved already.
but yet it wasn't approved?
It
So
well
what
was, but
what
then the time
approved
ran
and
out.
what wasn't?
The whole subdivision was approved
The subdivision was approved
Yes.
with
with the road,
the road. And then they just didn't do anything with it.
right?
But the lots are existing.
Yes.
The road is existing approved. It's already been approved. I guess I'm just confused on what you're doing, Eric. Then I'm confused.
Because the time ran out for them to develop it. So that's why they have to come back.
But it was approved to be developed.
Doesn't matter. There's a certain timeline
Time,
that they have to.
New York State Department of Health and DEC have to approve it as well, and their time period has
So
expired.
they didn't complete all the steps to approve the
They
subdivision?
didn't start developing it, and so now,
But they didn't develop it. They got everything approved, but they never developed.
right, and now
anything
they're
they got approved.
proposing a change in the
I'm just
road.
trying to understand. Sorry. Because the way I'm looking at these lots are here. So even if there's a dirt road going down there, somebody could buy one of these lots.
Yeah.
There's actually
What
a
would
house down
stop-
there. There's a
What
house
would
down
stop somebody? You could not, could you deny them a building permit if somebody bought one of these lots? I'm trying to understand this.
I don't believe if they wanted to build right now, they could. So what
Okay.
the process is, from my understanding during our last review is previously, I don't know the year, you guys can better explain it, but they've already 2009-ish, they went through the whole process, had town board or planning board approval to move forward. They went through the whole DOH Realty subdivision. They received approval from DOH Realty subdivision law. So everything was set. It seems like it was filed at the county. So they are paying taxes on the individual lots. You go on to GIS, the lots are shown broken out. So that's the reason the plans are as they are. With DOH Realty subdivision, they have conditions of approval. My understanding is there's a 5-year sunset period. So if the lots aren't constructed within that period and there wasn't an acceptance by Department of Health to prolong it, then basically it would have to be submitted again and it's DOH jurisdiction to determine what the requirements are. So Eric's already stated he reached out and they're stating that he doesn't have to go back in for if the septic systems didn't change and the wells didn't change, but they may have to go back in for updated standards if anything's changed on that end. And now, since there's a sunset period and it didn't move forward in that regard, they also have to go in for DEC since it's going to be over an acre of disturbance. They have to do a stormwater pollution prevention plan, just like we discussed earlier with DEC. So that would be submitted and reviewed. So the stormwater, even though it was designed previously, would have to be designed, to my understanding, to meet their current requirements, get approval, and then it would have to, move forward, which I'm not gonna make a decision on for the town legal process on that end to move forward.
So the sunset they had to build on every one of these lots within. 5
Yeah, I don't
years,
know the
or
exact
just one
language off the
lot, two
top.
lots?
I believe construction has to be, is it completed within 5 years? I forget how the DOH is.
The lots?
I'd have to honestly look. I
Sorry.
haven't. Yeah, no, there's a DOH Realty subdivision law. Everything's posted on their website. I just haven't looked at it in a little bit, so I forget exactly how it was stated, but in the conditions of approval, and it might have been stamped on the prior when it was approved previously, the condition of that 5-year sunset period, my understanding.
Because with one house being there already. does
Yes,
that-
I believe there's more than that required.
Okay.
So I've reached out to
Sorry.
try to get more information on that from Department of Health, and what I stated before, that they wouldn't make us redo the individual lots. That was a conversation that I had because I was on another project with him, and I'm just like, this is what we've got over here. And he's like, no, I don't think we would, but I don't have a formal response yet back on whether they need to reapprove the entire subdivision from their point of view.
Is the stormwater plan that you're presenting same that has been approved, or is it different?
That is different. That is very different.
Okay.
So part of the first step is basically to have a public hearing. Yes or no?
A public hearing for the stormwater or? for the
Well-
whole development?
It sounds like for the whole development.
I don't know how this affects the prior approval. I mean, they're presenting something different to you, but
Well, different by the road, not necessarily the,
that all has to be finalized before the planning board approves.
And
Subdivision.
there's already a house and down there.
Right.
So
This is new for me.
you know, what's new for us. Um,
Well, what if somebody purchased one of these lots? What would we have to do? I mean, they have a tax map.
I don't know if they could build on it.
Well, there's one of them has been purchased and built on.
Probably maybe within the 5-year period that started a while ago.
Yeah, that could have taken place. I don't know the history. The 5-year period, it says the intent of the 5-year limited approval is to avoid having indefinite realty subdivision plan approvals. A limited time frame gives DOH the ability to halt and or reevaluate further construction on remaining lots if history of problems has been reported or witnessed during construction of the subdivision. After 5 years, if construction is not complete or all the lots are not sold, the developer or owner must apply for an approval extension. A site inspection is recommended and concerns of the municipality or other interested parties, if any, should be addressed before approving the extension. If there are no proposed changes, the extension process may be as simple as a letter to the owner and filing the letter with the approved plans through the county clerk. So my understanding is that stormwater, if it's going to impact anything, that's different than the prior approval. So that should be reviewed, but I mean, I would defer to, the town's decision on the remaining items. I mean, sometimes stormwater can have minimal impact, sometimes it can have major impact. So if there's roadway shifts or lot changes, obviously that's different. And then DOH makes their determination on the minimum requirements that are going to be needed from them on the submission. But the town should be kept in the loop on those submissions and any changes so that all parties are aware of the changes and approvals that are necessary. It sounds like no matter what, you're still going back into DEC to meet the modern updated standards because stormwater has changed a lot since that time period. So it's a big priority now. So obviously with those changes, I just wanted to give an update on what we know. And
Yeah,
what
and
was listed.
as far as the stormwater goes, I mean, it does meet the standards. We've completed the plan, we've completed the notice of intent. All we need to do is push send. But, typically, the local jurisdiction will do a review of that before we do that. That's why we haven't submitted it yet.
So basically the design and the lots would only need an extension. But the stormwater needs approval and to be revisited.
Stormwater will be handled by DEC. We recommended we would look at, sorry, talking about this again. So our understanding is DOH is going to determine the requirements that are what are needed on their end for realty subdivision. So they can make them do everything or minimal, depending on what they see fit. We're looking at it from the stance of your subdivision regulations on if any of those changes impact, the latest design, and if there's any code updates, stuff like that. And then DEC reviews the stormwater. Our stormwater review is not necessarily a technical review. We're reviewing against your subdivision codes because DEC would handle the technical review items. All we would do is review it because if the town, highway department and town choose to take over the roadway and stormwater management practices, like we discussed earlier, there's, certain items that are required for operation and maintenance of those practices. So that's what is listed, like Eric discussed, within the SWIP, which it seems like it is generated. So we would take that and have additional meetings outside of that.
But the extension's expired, right? So
Yes.
So they're starting over with the realty subdivision because they never got an extension.
Yeah.
But we don't
But
know.
now
what's
Yeah,
in play.
and what I heard from what
5
what
years,
Jonathan
you
read.
Apply it for an extension.
They didn't.
Right, but from what I heard from that, it could be a pretty simplified review. They
Yeah.
could just look at their old records and write a letter.
Yeah, that's DOH
Right.
jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
versus
think
starting from the beginning.
I think my recommendation, since they are changing part of the plan that was already approved, I think you need to treat it like a new subdivision application. I think you need to follow the process of having a public hearing and then going through the approval process. But I do want you to keep in mind that the lots haven't changed. Sounds like, And the only thing that has changed is the stormwater. So if for some reason you decide not to approve it, that has to be based on the stormwater. It can't be based on anything else. Because you've already approved the other aspects of it.
So by having a public hearing, they really can't comment on anything but the stormwater?
I mean, they can, you can't take it. into
Yeah, but that's what I'm
consideration.
saying.
Because we can't go back and take away that. the
Right,
lots,
that's a good
correct?
question. You can't change the
can,
laws.
Risky though.
Right,
I would not.
There's,
suggest it.
right.
As far as our regulations, the book said 1998 was the last time our regulations were written. So that wouldn't change.
No, that's- So we're starting all over, but we're really just looking at the stormwater.
You're starting at the final plat, you're not gonna go back to the preliminary one, but so basically that's just another public hearing and then you can decide to approve it.
In the meantime, you can meet with the town as far as the stormwater and the roads.
I would suggest that you do.
I got a handle on it now.
Their next meeting is June 12th.
The only other thing I'll say, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, with the historical items, I don't know if all the documentation, we didn't review everything, but we did inquire with Department of Health if they had the original environmentals with the type 1 action. So is that going to be started again? I guess that
We
would be-
should redo that.
Yeah.
If you could get them the long form, the first part of that, they can just do the second part, during the public hearing.
Okay.
Can we make a motion to set a public hearing then? I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Yes, please.
You want to-
Yes.
Yes,
You need a date and a
Yes.
time.
At the next-
You Need a date and a
Okay.
time.
whatever our next meeting
The
is.
next meeting.
It's going to be June 28th, I believe. 7 PM.
Yes.
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 That is June 28th, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll get the seeker in as soon as possible. I won't wait till the week before the next meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. John,
That one made me.
John,
Yes.
are you going to have Cedarwood review this?
Well, that's what I was going to ask the lawyer. Do we have to have them review it? I guess we do.
You don't have to let them review it, but if
No,
they're
but-
gonna take over maintenance of it, I would suggest that they review it.
Okay. So we, this is something that's gonna,
Do I have to go back to the board and ask approval for that again? Because they've done it once.
But if they wanna make a general resolution, that would cover you going.
Well, I'm just saying, we got approval before to have it reviewed already.
Way back.
No,
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 just
just-
recently.
For the
just
road,
recently
when they want the road elevation.
changed.
Yeah.
Cedarwood reviewed the plans that they gave us at that point. So now they've given us this. Should that be reviewed by the engineering company? And you're saying yes, because if the town's gonna take over the maintenance of that stormwater system, they should be informed.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question to you is, do I need to take that to the board to get another approval, or can I just contact Cedarwood and say, please do this?
I would just contact you.
Okay,
But we still have to make a motion to do it, correct? To prove it, I would assume,
to approve what?
for them to do it again.
I think it's been referred to them, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, it's already been referred, so. they'll
Okay.
just
It's like an
review it again.
extension.
Yeah,
of
there's
that.
a letter here. We've written a response to it, so we'll send all that to them to look at our response.
All right,
And part of it is this way.
Now we're done. They have an agenda meeting on June 1st, the town board, and they have their regular meeting on June 12th. And I'm sure you'll just want to contact Ronnie Doyle too. I think their agenda is at 7 still.
yes.
7 o'clock on June 1st is their agenda, and June 12th is their actual regular meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Next is approval of our minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll
for the
second.
Last meeting.
Yes.
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 All right, does anybody have any old or new business? Howard?
I just wanted to make a comment on the stormwater issue in the town not having somebody qualified to do that. I think tonight shows that we should probably recommend to the town board that we get somebody qualified to do that. With the amount of subdivisions that we just looked at. If the town's serious about trying to get affordable housing or any new housing or things like that, we need to be capable and willing to provide that, or, you know, at least seriously consider taking over some of those stormwater issues.
Well, the only thing I was gonna point out, which you probably already know, it's gonna cost.
Yeah,
According to Ronnie, it sounds like hire somebody or train somebody, you know, that's gonna be doing more than what his regular job is.
Yeah, I mean, I
Which,
I agree with
you're
Dane.
right. You're
It's a
absolutely
minimal
right.
amount of, I mean, the cost is minimal if you're talking about
Right.
bringing in 10 to 20, $400,000 houses. I mean.
Absolutely.
it's a lot
yeah,
of
the
tax
tax
revenue.
goes.
To sort of make that point to the town
Oh, somebody
board,
builds them.
would it make sense, would it be appropriate for just a simple one-page formal letter from the planning board to the town board to say, based on X, Y, Z, like Dane pointed out, we recommend that you hire somebody with these qualifications?
Or train somebody.
Yeah.
That we already have on staff.
Is that something that we'd want to do? I mean, if I could draft something for everybody's consideration, if you'd like.
I think that would make sense, just because, I mean, again, if we're serious and we want to get ahead of some of these issues, to not continue to be kind of
Wishy-washy.
wishy-washy and coming from behind, and, you know, do we have this guy? Do we have that guy?
You want me to get a draft of a letter to Karen and she could circulate it to the planning board, and if everyone's good with it, we could send it out? Would that protocol be appropriate?
What time frame does it take to maintain these or clean those? Would it be worth having a subcontractor
Can we ask the,
to monitor and maintain these for a certain period? Then it wouldn't be a town employee.
I'm gonna.
Yeah,
Oh,
you,
I'm sorry.
you can absolutely look at that. So we can provide guidance. There's a newer stormwater manual that gives some recommendations on costs. You know, I think a lot of these practices, they say the annual cost can be up to, as a rough figure, annual maintenance and operation 4% of the construction costs. So it, depending on, you know, the size of these basins and the determination of what practices are chosen, some are more elaborate than others. Some may require more specialized training with plants and maintaining the plants. Some can be as simple as just mowing, trash removal, cleaning out debris and sedimentation basins. But the problem that could arise that you have to think of also is, you know, if these things don't perform. So, I mean, there should be additional inspection requirements during construction, which, you know, there's a certified engineer that's going to have to review it on their end, but also on the town's end. You may want to have some additional, you know, language that, you know, these things are going to be maintained over time, because if they do fail and you need it, it's going to be big money to get somebody in. You'd need a professional engineer to essentially potentially evaluate it and redesign it, or do regrading, or do a different practice if things fail. So the maintenance is important. So there's things that may have to be done, you know, or at least checked weekly or monthly, and then the mowing, you know, just so it doesn't get out of control and that you can access the site and maintain it. But every single practice is different. So that's why we recommend, when the stormwater pollution prevention plan comes in, it's the big manual that, you know, we can look at it or show you what to look at. So you can see the full maintenance requirements in there. And then we can also show you where to look on DEC's website, and there's, you know, specifications for each individual practice.
Keep in mind too, that the town does not have to take over the maintenance of these stormwater.
Right.
So in that case, Karen, each new development would have to have an HOA. I mean, is that the? what would have
Yeah,
to happen?
typically.
Or like, I think this
Or-
guy said they were gonna take care of it themselves through, something in the deed.
It's like deeds and covenants. Yeah, I don't know how that would, I mean, you would basically need an HOA or form some entity based on our experience to do that. So that's more of the legal process that we stay out of, but I don't know if there's a way to do it where the town takes it over and then they're doing the maintenance. I think they'd have to basically segment it so that you'd basically have a lot there and it would be owned by the HOA so that the town would only own whatever the true right of way is for the roadway. But you also have to remember, I mean, depending on the subdivision, there's also other things there. So you have to figure out how the stormwater is transmitted to these basins. So is it catch basins that are going to be installed that are structures that will also have to be potentially maintained over time, debris, stuff like that, cleaned out, pumped out every now and then? Or is it going to be overland flow with swales like, some of the other subdivisions that were proposed? So there's just considerations, because I think if the town takes over the roadway, you're taking over everything within that right of way. That means the catch basins, that means the culvert pipes. And then outside of that, then the HOA would take over the actual stormwater management practices. So
I think that a subcontractor would be a better recommendation, only because it takes the liability off the town employees. So if we have a subcontractor has a contract to maintain these and they're not maintaining them correctly and something goes wrong, then it falls on the subcontractor, not our town employees for lack of knowledge.
and there's more specialized and less specialized. So you could also do a combination, because if that's too expensive and you just want somebody for the more specialized services on the maintenance side, the little things like mowing and trash removal, debris cleanup can be stuff that could be done in-house. So, we can point those things out to the town board, the planning board, so that, you can make a decision that's in the best interest of the town.
I
Either
like
way,
that.
I think Dane's suggestion is a good one. If we want to consider, going in a direction and providing, some good housing in our area, which we all agree we would like and need. Yeah.
My only
So-
comment is how much liability and expense if something goes down. I mean, let's say you take care of it. Eventually something might go wrong, correct? It'll deteriorate. There becomes a big expense for the town.
That's always a risk. I mean, it's the capital cost of maintaining infrastructure. Everything has a life cycle. Eventually things can fail. Hopefully they have a long life. Maintenance is very important. Preventative maintenance to make sure these things don't fail. But if you have an infiltration practice eventually plug up and fail because, say, you're not cleaning out a sedimentation basin, things like that, and it's spilling over and there's additional work required to be done, that's a lot more money, basically construction costs that you're going to have to look into, because if you have a large storm event, that's going to go downstream. All these, practices typically have overflows for larger storms, and that'll just push the issue, further down. So maintenance is
And I know
very-
that's what the town will be looking at, the
Yeah.
expense, because we already have a water situation in the
Yeah.
town.
Have you ever seen a municipality create a special district to deal with stormwater, and tax the residents of the district?
That was my
maintain it?
next question for the certain houses in the developments, if they could be taxed differently to
Yeah.
maintain the cost.
I haven't been part of them. I'm sure they exist, and I can ask internally to know if anybody else has dealt with it. The areas we know, either the town takes it over or they don't take it over, but I'm sure it's been done. I can take a look at that.
So we could refer this to the town board because they're gonna have to make the decision.
Yeah, I think we just want them thinking about it and
Yeah.
kind of giving us some guidance on what they want to do is what we're looking for. Whether that's keeping the roads private and having HOAs manage the stormwater, or if they want to, make them public roads, then we have to address it in some way. That's what's going on.
I think we all agree on that.
Again, just keep in mind that the town could take over the road, but not the
Okay, so
stormwater.
it could be separate.
Yeah, it can be separate. It does not have to
You already
be.
said you do that.
Nope.
I have a question. Do some municipalities have like rules that like a certain amount of houses and then they'll take over a road, or a certain amount of houses and then they'll do stormwater? Is there like a
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's more of a judgment call on if you plan to take it over, if the tax money essentially is enough to cover the O and M costs and you have the staffing capabilities to do it, then you can take it over. So it's more of a judgment call in my experience than a true written standard.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, though. Is that something that the town should look at where, or should it be evaluated on a case by case basis? Of,
Yeah.
you know,
We typically see it on a case by case basis. I mean, we deal with certain municipalities that are no longer taking roads and stormwater practices over and some do. So I mean, it's just a benefit or cost benefit analysis you have to weigh to determine, obviously you don't want to discourage development. So it's just something you're going to have to weigh, and having them form an HOA costs are more upfront costs, but those maintenance costs are really just split between that individual development. So it's not, you're not providing a service. It's just that, it has to be weighed. You have to determine what practice is going to go to each individual site. And some are way more maintenance intensive than others. So I would recommend just evaluating it on case by case. And, we can present the information based on, current standards on projected costs and things like that. But it's just solely dependent on the type of design that's utilized for the specific site.
Thank you.
We get him to come at every meeting.
Go sit up here.
No, thank you. That was good information. Yeah, that'd be great.
But I still have a question. How would the planning board convey this recommendation to the town board? Of the
How do you usually do it?
significance
Through a
of
letter?
Yeah, just through a letter
Or
saying.
do you just speak it, or do you, at one of your recommendations
Well,
at the,
A lot of
meeting.
times I'll bring it to the board, but I think in this case,
Here it comes.
I wouldn't know how to present it kind of to the board. So I think if Howard has an idea of what he would like to put in a letter, certainly get it to me. We'll distribute it and then we can get it to the board.
I will do that. I'll do
Yeah.
that this week.
I don't think it has to be that they need to hire somebody, is that this is something that we are advising them
Consider.
to consider because we are seeing, this is being presented to us at the planning board.
It's a barrier to our development.
Yeah. Would it be either an employee or a subcontractor? You mentioned a subcontractor.
There's many different options.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we
Different-
need to have the answers before the subdivisions are approved on
Mhm.
how these are gonna be handled.
Yeah, I'll draft something and get it to Karen.
Great. Thanks, Howard.
But ultimately, it'll be their decision on how they wanna
Mm.
either take ownership of them or just take ownership of the roads. And then if they don't take ownership of them, we need to be comfortable approving them subdivisions, knowing they're gonna be maintained in the long run and not hurt the area and the environment and everything,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, essentially that could just be condition of approval, they, over the life of the project, they're gonna have to comply, with the stormwater pollution prevention plan and the maintenance of those items. So, if it's a full HOA with the roadway and everything else, if there's issues, then, the town can kind of enforce things like that. Sorry, I'm almost dropping stuff here.
Thank you, Howard.
Josh, you have any?
Nope, I'm good.
Kyle? Tony,
I think I've spoken enough.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Thanks, everyone. Good meeting. Thank you for all of your input.
I don't think. Looking at it.